Alright guys, we are going to be reacting to our Chile's Marder 1A3 tank headed to Ukraine in secret. I don't know, let's jump in.
Vehicles to Ukraine, and then slamming on the brakes and saying, "Who, us?" Yeah, we need to talk about this one. Hey friends, Wes here, journalist and military veteran, and let's jump right in. Here's the story. First, Chilean outlet El Monstrador, is that right? Monstrador? Reports that Chile is preparing to send 30 Marder 1A3 infantry fighting vehicles back to Germany as part of a Ringtausch, a circular exchange. Germany would upgrade them and then pass them on to Ukraine. In return, Chile would get badly needed German air defense systems. Then, Dylan Masiolov at Defense Blog publishes a follow-up. Chile's foreign minister steps up and says Chilean law prohibits sending weapons to countries in an active conflict. He insists Chile's neutrality stands and that no Chilean weapon can end up in a theater of conflict, especially in Ukraine or anywhere else. But he very carefully does not flat out deny that some kind of deal with Germany exists. So, on paper, we have a reported plan for 30 Marders to move from Chile to Germany and then to Ukraine. We also have a public statement that Chile cannot send weapons to a country at war, and we have a big gray area in between where to Germany is technically not to Ukraine, which is exactly where modern arms diplomacy likes to live, in that gray area. Let's break this down. Germany's Ringtausch scheme is pretty simple. A country hands over its older Western or Soviet pattern kit to Ukraine via Germany. Germany compensates that country with newer German gear, money, or both. Everyone gets plausible deniability, and Ukraine gets hardware faster than waiting around for brand new production runs. In this case, Chile operates 173 Marder 1A3s it bought from Germany in the early 2000s as part of a modernization push. Those vehicles form the backbone of several armored brigades. At the same time, Chile's ground-based air defenses are embarrassingly thin for a country with long borders and important infrastructure. If you strip out naval and air assets, you're basically looking at minstrel manpads and old TCM-20 twin 20mm guns. That's not a modern layered air defense for Chile. So the Ringtausch proposal looks logical. Chile gives up 30 Marders it can technically spare. Germany sends modern air defense systems and maybe upgrades the rest of Chile's fleet over time. Germany then refurbishes those 30 Marders and passes them right on over to Ukraine, where 155mm shells are not theoretical problems. They are daily weather. On paper, everybody gets something they need. So now we get to the no comment, but also kind of a comment part. Chile's foreign minister, Alberto van Claveren, tells local media there is a regulation that forbids supplying weapons to countries in active conflict. He stresses Chile cannot have its weaponry in the theater of war in Ukraine. At the same time, he refuses to speak about specific operations and never clearly says this report is false. So what's going on here? So there might be a couple of reasons why they're trying to obscure their part in this. The first is law and politics at home. Chile does have strict export rules. Any transfer that smells like Chile arms a side in a war becomes a domestic political grenade. Saying we stick to neutrality is aimed at parliament, media, and voters. The second reason might be Russia. Chile is not a NATO member. It buys fuel and fertilizer on a global market. It does not need Moscow blacklisting it, blocking trade, or suddenly discovering an interest in backing Chile's least favorite neighbors. By framing everything as, we are neutral, we are not sending weapons to Ukraine, Santiago keeps itself off Russia's official naughty list this season. The third reason is plausible deniability. If the deal happens as reported, Chile hands the Marders to Germany, full stop. Germany then does whatever Germany wants. On paper, Chile supplied armor.
Yeah, that's not a thing they're going to do. They're going to simply just trade with Germany. Germany's going to give them like modern weaponry. And after that, Germany can do whatever the hell they want with those tanks. And then Chile basically gonna say, you know what, we haven't done anything. It's not our problem. They can figure out what they need to do. In our case, we are stayed out of this, basically.
To an ally, not to a war zone. That is the same legal fiction used in several European ring exchanges. Everyone follows their own laws, and Ukraine still gets the hardware. So when the foreign minister says, our law forbids sending arms to countries in active conflict, that may be completely true. It also does not rule out we sold surplus Marders back to the original manufacturer, Germany, who totally did not tell us what happens next. Very convenient. But what about this Marder? Is it really worth all the hassle? Well, the Marder is a West German infantry fighting vehicle developed in the late 1960s to replace earlier troop carriers and to accompany Leopard 1 tanks. The 1A3 version, which Chile operates and Ukraine receives, is a heavily upgraded Cold War veteran. The Marder carries a crew of 3 in the front and a squad of 6 infantry in the back. Troops sit in a rear compartment with a powered rear ramp for fast dismounts. The vehicle weighs around 33 to 35 tons, depending on armor kit. It's powered by a 600 horsepower MTU diesel engine. Top speed is about 65 kilometers per hour on road, with a range of roughly 500 kilometers under good conditions. The main weapon is a 20mm Rheinmetall Mark 20 RH-202 autocannon in a 2-man turret. Now that gun can fire high explosive and armor-piercing rounds out to about 2 kilometers against ground targets and a bit further in area suppression. There is a coaxial 7.62mm machine gun, and many Marders were fitted with a Milan anti-tank guided missile on the roof just for funsies. The 1A3 upgrade added extra spaced armor on the front and the sides, better protection against 30mm fire, improved internal layout, and some tweaks to survivability after lessons from older models. Now, it's not a Puma or a CB90 in terms of protection, but compared to a Soviet BMP-1, it's like upgrading from chainmail to plate armor. Now, for Ukraine, the Marder brings 3 key advantages. First, crew survivability, better armor, better internal layout, and less diesel-soaked ammo rack in your lap design philosophy. Also, the Marder has better optics and night fighting compared to old Soviet machines. Seeing first often means shooting first, which means you live longer. Finally, NATO standard everything, maintenance methods, ammunition, training, all of that lines up with the rest of Ukraine's Western kit. But how many Marders does Ukraine actually have right now? Well, Germany has already delivered roughly 140 Marder 1A3s to Ukraine, with 25 more pledged, depending on the source and the date. Those vehicles have been photographed in Ukrainian service with several mechanized brigades. They show up near critical axes, they are often working alongside Leopard 1 or Leopard 2 tanks, or teamed up with older Soviet armor as the Uber Black for assault infantry. Ukraine uses them as classic IFVs, moving infantry under armor up to assault lines, then laying down 20mm fire to suppress enemy positions. They also use them as mobile fire support, using their cannon to shred light fortifications, trucks, or exposed troops, especially when paired with drone spotting, and as hardened battle taxis, shuttling reserves and ammunition in sectors where Russian FPV drones make soft-skinned trucks a very dangerous assignment. Are they perfect? No. The 20mm gun on top is on the lighter side compared to 30mm or 35mm cannons found on newer IFVs. The armor is good for its era, but not designed for modern top-attack munitions, and the vehicles are old, which means spare parts and maintenance are constant chores. But in Ukraine's conditions,
if it is out of date, it's going to be hard to look for those pieces. If they need to be fixed, it's going to be harder. It's like fixing a Toyota Corolla from the 90s and fixing a Toyota Corolla from 2025. It's very hard. Different pieces. Probably some of these pieces don't exist because they're not necessary in today's car industry. You know what I'm trying to say.
Old German beast that runs is better than a theoretical next generation IFE that hasn't been delivered yet, and definitely better than old Soviet kit. If Chile's 30 Marders eventually join that fleet, you are looking at something like 170 vehicles total. That is enough to fully equip several brigades or to keep a rotating pool of combat-ready Marders while others are in repair. So here's why Chile might still go through with it quietly. If Chile really is preparing a Ringstausch, here is why it makes sense for Santiago, even with all the legal and political hedging. First, air defense. Chile's ground air defense inventory is thin and dated. Getting modern German systems, potentially Iris-T SLM or Skynex type guns, would drag their air defense into the 21st century, almost overnight. Second, force structure. Chile bought around 270 Marders originally and modernized about 180 of them. Losing 30 hurts, but it does not gut the armored brigades, especially if newer platforms arrive later. Third, diplomacy. Participating in a ring exchange aligns Chile more closely with Europe and the broader pro-Ukrainian coalition without a big public flag waving moment. It's a way of saying, we support Ukraine while still claiming legal neutrality. From Russia's point of view, even that is annoying. Moscow hates the Ringstausch concept because it turns half the planet's old armor into potential Ukrainian kit. But Chile is betting that quietly sending 30 secondhand IFVs to Germany is not enough to trigger full Russian retaliation. If you're sitting in Santiago and looking at your economy, that is a reasonable bet. So, is Chile secretly arming Ukraine? On paper, no. There is a law that forbids sending arms to countries at war. The foreign minister has repeated that publicly. But in practice, if those Marders go to Germany and then move on to Ukraine as part of a German decision, Santiago can say it obeyed its law and maintained neutrality while still helping a country that has openly said it supports politically. It is a legal tightrope, but it is also what international support for Ukraine looks like now. Some nations shout their support from the rooftops, others help through back channels and third-party deals. The important part, from Ukraine's point of view, is whether those vehicles eventually show up at a muddy forward staging area in Donetsk with Ukrainian crews inside. Until we see satellite photos and frontline footage, this deal lives in the gray zone. But the fact that Chile is even in this conversation at all tells you something. Even countries on the far side of the world, with their own laws and their own fears about Russia, are looking at their Cold War garages and thinking, maybe these old German boxes belong in Ukraine now. If and when those Marders roll east, they will be a signal that the coalition backing Ukraine is wider than it looks on a map. That's it for today, my friends. Subscribing.
Yeah, I mean, if the benefit to just increase the modern weaponry of Chile, I think that's a great move. However, I do believe that you know, even if they say we just want to maintain a neutrality in this war, I think Russia might just look at them with a different lens. They might, guys. They might. The reason I'm saying this is because you cannot make a treaty like this or a trade like this and not expecting Russia to, you know, look at you different. You know, that's my opinion. But, you know, Germany and Chile has a long-standing relationship that, you know, you cannot question that even before this conflict. So that can help them in that regard. Outside of that, you know, it's good for Chile. It's good for Chile. It's good for Germany. Germany can do whatever the hell they want with those tanks. They can do whatever the hell they want. It's not Chile's concern at that point. Chile can just retract that and say, you know, we just gave them these tanks for this armory and that's it. We are out of this. We don't care what happened in Ukraine. They can take that stance as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, guys. I'll see you next one.